It's been 16 years since this conference was last held in Durban, and much has changed. In 2000, just 6 years after our democratic elections and 4 years after we adopted our constitution, sex workers were idealistically waiting for change.
What we're doing here is we're trying to draw attention to the fact that it's been 19 years and we're still waiting for law reform in South Africa. We had a process, an investigation that started in 1997. It's 2016 now, and sex workers are dying every day because this law isn't passed. So we're here to tell everyone that sex workers are here, we're in the conversation, we're not going to be standing outside anymore, and we need to decriminalize sex work now.
How serious are we about addressing the needs of sex workers? There are 4 things you need to know about criminalization of sex work. 1, it harms sex workers. 2, it enables corruption and abuse against sex workers. 3, it drives stigma. 4, it erodes our efforts to end AIDS. Sex workers are here in numbers today, although the continued criminalization meant that we had to wait at the doors while our criminal records were checked. And we had to argue to be let in. We had to explain why we are here, and we had to answer questions for security. This is an example of the literal barrier that criminalization poses to sex workers. Sex workers are arrested for having consensual sex while their rapists never see the inside of a jail cell. The law against sex work doesn't work. 52 years after criminalization, sex workers are still here. The only thing that the law has done is enable police corruption and abuse. It allows violence against sex workers to continue unabated and crimes against sex workers to go unreported. And those who abuse sex workers can do so with impunity.
For people who saw some of the placards, we had placards that carried the names and the ages of sex workers who have died. And these are sex workers who have been killed in a very brutal manner. And for the majority of them, those cases have not been brought to justice, and their killers are still roaming the streets. So it is quite important for us as a sector, as a community, to highlight some of the bad laws around sex work.
Now that you know criminalization harms sex workers, here are some things you need to know about decriminalization. Based on evidence, decriminalization will enable sex workers to address violence against them, enforce their rights, report violence against them. Based on evidence, decriminalization will not increase the number of sex workers exploited, women trafficked, or children exploited. Decriminalization will not increase the numbers of sex workers or the demand for sex work. Evidence suggests that the legal framework has little impact on the demand for sex work.
The message of the conference is make it count. There's some slogans, keep your promise. So you have to keep your promises to sex workers because we are at the front line. We are the ones who are facing a lot of the abuse, the discrimination. A lot of research has shown that sex workers have got higher rates of HIV. So if you want to do anything and you want to get to the zeros or the 1990s, that the UNAIDS has, you have to target, you have to deal with sex workers because we are at the front line.
The law that criminalizes sex workers is the last remaining apartheid-era law. Courageous activists are here in this room, and they had to fight to be here. Some didn't make it. We have lost many of our colleagues to untreated illness and to violence. Make true the promise to leave no one behind. We want at this conference a resolution that all countries must decriminalize sex work.
And I think for us, we want to participate, but we also want this to be meaningful. We don't want to just come to the space so we can say we've been to Durban. We want to know that after Durban, there will be policy change. There will be things that will improve for sex workers. And as a country, we are in Durban, we are in South Africa, is to say, what has happened to law reform? We need the minister, we need the departments, we need government to actually make better laws for sex workers so that we don't die in the numbers.